My name is Amanda. I was 22 when what should have been the proudest day of my life turned into the moment I finally understood what family truly means. After 4 years of hard work at university, I stood outside the venue in my cap and gown, stunned by my Aunt Patricia's words, "It's just for close family." I looked around and everyone else was already inside. So I took my cap and gown, turned around, and said, "Guess I'll celebrate elsewhere." If you've ever had to choose your peace over family drama, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe to join our community of survivors. Growing up, our family had a very specific hierarchy. My mom, Catherine, was always the peacemaker, my dad, Robert, the steady provider, and my younger brother, Jacob, seemed to float through life without much resistance. But above all of us loomed the towering presence of my Aunt Patricia, my mom's older sister, who somehow managed to control every family decision without anyone questioning her authority. From my earliest memories, Aunt Patricia orchestrated family gatherings with military precision. Christmas at her house, Thanksgiving, according to her menu, and birthdays, celebrated exactly as she deemed appropriate. Nothing happened in our extended family without her approval, and over the years I noticed how my mom gradually surrendered more of her independence to keep peace with her domineering sister. "Amanda, not everything needs to be a battle," my mom would say whenever I questioned why Aunt Patricia got to decide where we spent our holidays, or why my preferences were rarely considered for family events. "Some things aren't worth fighting over." But to me, it felt like everything was surrendered without a fight. By the time I was a teenager, I recognized the pattern. At family gatherings, I was often seated at the kids' table long after my cousins had been promoted to the adults section. My accomplishments were downplayed, while my cousin Melissa's mediocre achievements were celebrated extravagantly. When I won the regional science fair in 10th grade, Aunt Patricia commented that book smarts aren't everything, but when Melissa placed third in a local dance competition, we all had to attend a special dinner in her honor. The real conflict began when I announced my plans to attend the University of Michigan. I had worked tirelessly through high school, maintaining a 4.0 GPA, while working weekends at the local bookstore to save for college. When my acceptance letter arrived along with a partial scholarship, I was ecstatic. College is expensive, and psychology isn't exactly a practical degree, Aunt Patricia announced at Sunday dinner when my parents proudly shared my news. "You could take classes at the community college and live at home. No need to waste all that money." My dad, usually quiet during family disagreements, spoke up then. "Amanda earned this opportunity, Patricia. We're very proud of her." It was one of the few times I'd seen him directly contradict my aunt, and the momentary flash of anger in her eyes revealed just how unaccustomed she was to being challenged. Moving 300 miles away to Ann Arbor was liberating. For the first time, I could make decisions without calculating the potential for Aunt Patricia's disapproval. I decorated my dorm room with bright colors she would have called garish. I chose classes based on my interests rather than practicality. I made friends who valued my opinions and respected my boundaries. During those 4 years, my visits home decreased in frequency. Each return seemed to highlight the strange power dynamics I'd grown up with, but could now see clearly from a distance. My psychology studies helped me understand the family system better, recognizing how my mom's childhood as the younger sister had established patterns that continued into adulthood. My roommate Haley couldn't comprehend my family situation. "Your aunt dictates where your parents spend holidays, and your mom just goes along with it," she asked incredulously, during our sophomore year. My mom would tell her sister to mind her own business. "It's complicated," I explained, though I was beginning to question why we all accepted this arrangement without challenge. The most unexpected alliance formed with my cousin Grace, Aunt Patricia's youngest daughter. 2 years older than me, Grace had always been kind but distant, caught in her mother's orbit. During my junior year, she reached out via text after another holiday where Aunt Patricia had made pointed comments about my absence. "Sorry about Mom," her message read. "She's threatened by you. Always has been." This revelation stunned me. How could my aunt, the self-appointed family matriarch who owned a successful real estate business and lived in the largest house in our extended family, feel threatened by her college student niece? "You're doing what she couldn't," Grace explained during a coffee meetup during winter break. She wanted to go to college, but Grandpa said it was a waste for girls. She never got over it. This context helped explain some of the hostility, but it didn't excuse it. During my senior year as graduation approached, I hoped my academic achievement might finally earn Aunt Patricia's approval, or at least her respect. My parents had promised a graduation party, something modest but meaningful. Just family and close friends at Angelo's restaurant, my mom said during a phone call in April. Dad's already made the reservation for the private room. I was touched by their thoughtfulness. Angelo's was slightly upscale for our family budget, known for its excellent Italian food and warm atmosphere. The private room could hold about 40 people, comfortably perfect for our extended family and the handful of local friends who would attend. That sounds perfect, Mom. Thank you. But as May approached, the party plans began to shift. First, it was the guest list. My mom called sounding apologetic. Aunt Patricia thought we should include the Hendersons and the Blakes since they've known you since you were little. The Hendersons and Blakes were my aunt's neighbors who had indeed known me since childhood but were hardly close family friends. Still, I didn't object. Then it was the venue. Patricia knows the owner at Bellamy's, my mom explained 2 weeks before graduation. She got us a discount on their banquet hall. It's much nicer than Angelo's. Bellamy's was indeed more upscale, but it was also more formal and lacked the cozy atmosphere I had envisioned. Again, I swallowed my disappointment. Whatever works best, Mom. With each phone call, I could hear my graduation celebration transforming into something that no longer resembled what I had wanted. The Italian dinner became a catered buffet. My request for a simple cake from my favorite local bakery was overridden in favor of an elaborate tiered creation from a patisserie Aunt Patricia preferred. The small gathering expanded to include distant relatives and my aunt's business associates. My brother Jacob called me a week before graduation. Just go with it, he advised. You know how Aunt Patricia gets when she's challenged. Jacob had always navigated family politics better than I had. As the only boy among the cousins, he'd been granted special status from birth. Aunt Patricia doted on him in a way she never did with any of the girls, including her own daughters. He'd learned early on to smile and comply, earning privileges through his agreeableness. This is supposed to be my graduation party, Jake, I reminded him. Not another showcase for Aunt Patricia's event planning skills. He sighed. I know, sis. But you'll be gone again after graduation and Mom and Dad still have to deal with her. Is it worth the drama? I wondered if anything was worth standing up for, if we all kept surrendering to avoid conflict. But graduation was approaching rapidly, and I had finals to focus on. The party details faded to the background as I completed my last college requirements. We'll sort it out when I get home, I promised myself, unaware that the party situation was just the beginning of what would become the most painful and ultimately transformative family encounter of my life. I arrived home from my final exams on Thursday afternoon, exhausted but relieved. My graduation ceremony was scheduled for Saturday morning, with the party to follow that evening. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar silver SUV parked in front of our house. Surprise, my mom said weakly when I walked through the door and found Aunt Patricia arranging flowers in our living room. Your aunt came early to help with preparations. Aunt Patricia looked up, assessing me with that familiar, critical gaze. Amanda, you look tired. College clearly takes a toll. Not congratulations or welcome home, just an immediate critique of my appearance. Finals week will do that, I replied, forcing a smile. Hi, Aunt Patricia. She nodded briskly and returned to her flowers. I've rearranged the seating chart for tomorrow. The Morgans canceled, so I invited the Petersons instead. Your mother was going to leave that gap, which would have looked terrible in photos. I exchanged a glance with my mom, who gave me a pleading look that clearly said, don't make waves. 4 years of psychology education had taught me about family systems and unhealthy dynamics, but all my knowledge crumbled in the face of these ingrained patterns. I excused myself to unpack. My childhood bedroom felt like a time capsule, preserved exactly as I'd left it after high school, right down to the debate team trophies and honor roll certificates on the wall. I sat on the edge of my bed, taking deep breaths to center myself. This was still my achievement, my graduation, regardless of how Aunt Patricia tried to co-opt it. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. My dad stood in the doorway looking apologetic. Got a minute. He entered and closed the door behind him, speaking softly. I have something for you, but I wanted to give it to you privately. From his pocket he withdrew a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold locket with intricate engraving. This was your grandmother's, he explained. My mother wore it at her college graduation. She would have wanted you to have it. I felt tears welling as I examined the beautiful piece. My paternal grandmother had died when I was 14, but I remembered her as a strong, independent woman who had valued education highly. Dad, it's beautiful, thank you. He helped me fasten it around my neck, then squeezed my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Amanda. Whatever happens this weekend, remember that. His words felt ominous, as if he were preparing me for something. Before I could ask what he meant, another voice called from downstairs. Robert, can you help move these tables? My dad sighed. Coming, Patricia. He gave me an apologetic smile before heading downstairs. The evening deteriorated from there. More relatives arrived early, allegedly to help prepare, but mostly creating chaos and tension. Uncle William, Aunt Patricia's husband, cornered me in the kitchen while I was making a sandwich. So, psychology degree, he said, leaning against the counter. Planning to analyze the family, are you? His tone was joking, but there was an edge to it. It's a versatile degree, I answered carefully. I'm considering several options. He nodded, studying me in a way that made me uncomfortable. Family legacy is important, Amanda. Some traditions are worth preserving rather than dissecting. Before I could decipher what he meant, Aunt Patricia called him away to discuss something about the party venue. I finished my sandwich in confused silence, wondering why my education seemed to threaten them so much. Later that evening, I overheard a conversation between my aunt and mother in the dining room as they reviewed party details. It's all about appropriate appearances, Aunt Patricia was saying. The Stevensons will be there, and they know the dean at Westlake Community College. This could be a perfect networking opportunity for Melissa. My cousin Melissa had dropped out of state college after one semester and was apparently considering community college options. It seemed my graduation party was being repurposed for my cousin's benefit. But it's Amanda's graduation celebration, my mom said, her voice uncharacteristically firm. Shouldn't we focus on her accomplishments? Of course, Catherine. But there's no reason we can't be practical about these gatherings. Social connections matter more than sentimentality. I slipped away before they noticed me, my stomach churning with a familiar sense of invisibility. Even at an event, ostensibly in my honor, I was being sidelined. My phone buzzed with a text from Haley. All set for tomorrow. Can't wait to celebrate with you. At least my best friend would be there. Haley had been my roommate for 3 years and understood the complicated dynamics with my extended family. Her presence would provide some moral support. I was heading upstairs when Cousin Grace arrived, slipping in through the side door to avoid the gathering in the living room. She found me on the stairs and pulled me into a quick hug. Brace yourself, she whispered. Mom's in rare form. I noticed. I whispered back. Any idea what's really going on? Grace glanced around to ensure we were alone. Something feels off. She's been making weird comments about your ideas coming back from college, and she changed the party slideshow last night. What slideshow? The one with your graduation photos. Mom insisted on reviewing it and spent hours editing it on her laptop. This was the first I'd heard of any slideshow. Before I could ask more questions, Uncle William called for Grace, and she squeezed my arm before joining the others. I tossed and turned that night, unable to sleep despite my exhaustion. Around 2 a.m, I gave up and pulled out my journal, recording my complicated emotions about the upcoming ceremony and party. I tried to focus on the positive, to remember that this graduation represented years of hard work and personal growth. Around 3, my phone lit up with a text from my former roommate Zoe. You've got this tomorrow. Don't let anyone dim your light. Zoe had witnessed firsthand some of the family dynamics during a disastrous Thanksgiving she'd spent with us during sophomore year. Her message brought tears to my eyes, a reminder that I had built a support system beyond my complicated family. I finally dozed off around 4, only to be awakened by the sounds of more activity downstairs at 7. Pulling on a robe, I went down to find my mom and Aunt Patricia already dressed and drinking coffee at the kitchen table, surrounded by party favor bags. "Amanda," my mom said, looking tired but excited. "Good morning, sweetheart. Big day today." "Morning," I mumbled, pouring myself coffee. "We need to leave by 9:30, Aunt Patricia announced. "The ceremony starts at 11, but we'll need good seats. I've arranged for professional photos afterward with the Carmichael photography team." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What, Mom? I thought we were just doing casual photos with my friends after the ceremony, then heading to the party." My mom looked uncomfortable. "Patricia thought professional photos would be nice. But I promised my roommates and study group we'd take pictures together by the library. It's tradition." Aunt Patricia waved a dismissive hand. "You can still do that. The professionals won't take long and they're not cheap, so we should maximize their time." I set my coffee down carefully, feeling my tenuous control slipping. "I'd like to follow the original plan. My friends are important to me." My mother looked panicked at the brewing confrontation, but before Aunt Patricia could respond, my dad entered the kitchen and read the tension immediately. "How about this?" he intervened smoothly. "Amanda can take photos with her friends first, then we'll do family photos after. The professionals can capture both." Aunt Patricia's lips thinned with displeasure, but she nodded curtly. "Fine, but we can't run late for the party setup." I shot my dad a grateful look, and he winked at me when my aunt wasn't looking. It was a small victory, but it bolstered my resolve to maintain some control over my graduation day. Saturday morning arrived with perfect blue skies and mild temperatures, as if the universe were compensating for the emotional turbulence of the previous day. I woke early before anyone else in the house and took my time getting ready. The ceremony didn't start until 11, but graduates needed to arrive by 9:30 for lineup and instructions. I showered and dried my hair, then carefully applied makeup, wanting to look my best for the photos that would commemorate this milestone. The locket my father had given me hung perfectly against my collar, a tangible connection to my grandmother's legacy. I smiled at my reflection, trying to channel her strength. When I went downstairs, I found my dad alone in the kitchen making breakfast. The aroma of bacon and coffee filled the air, a comforting reminder of weekend mornings from my childhood. "There's my graduate," he said warmly, sliding a plate of eggs and bacon toward me. "Thought you might want a good breakfast before the big day." I sat down gratefully. "Thanks, Dad. Where is everyone?" "Your mom and aunt went to check on something at the party venue. They'll meet us at the ceremony." He sat across from me with his own plate. "So how are you feeling?" "Nervous, excited, ready to be done." I poked at my eggs, and a little sad that everything seems to have become so complicated. My dad reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Today is about you, Amanda. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Your mom and I are incredibly proud of what you've accomplished." His sincerity brought tears to my eyes. "Thanks, Dad." We ate in companionable silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. "You know your aunt has always been a force of nature. Even when your mom and I were dating, Patricia had opinions about everything. But that doesn't mean she's right." This was the most direct criticism I'd ever heard my father make about Aunt Patricia. "Why does Mom always give in to her?" He sighed deeply. "Family dynamics get established early and are hard to break. Your mom and Patricia lost their parents young, and Patricia stepped into a parental role. Those patterns are deeply ingrained." He looked at me with sudden intensity. "But that doesn't mean they can't be changed." Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed with a text from my advisor, asking if I could stop by her office before the ceremony for a quick congratulations. It was time to leave. The drive to campus was peaceful, just my dad and me listening to my favorite playlist. For those 20 minutes, I felt the simple joy of achievement without the complications of extended family politics. The university campus buzzed with excitement. Graduates in caps and gowns streamed toward the assembly area, families clutching flowers and balloons navigated to the auditorium, and the air vibrated with anticipation. I hugged my dad goodbye at the drop-off point, promising to find them after the ceremony. "I'll be the one screaming your name inappropriately loud," he joked. Inside the assembly area, I found my psychology department classmates, including my study group, who had been my academic lifeline for 4 years. We took selfies and adjusted each other's caps giddy, with the surreal feeling that our undergraduate journey was actually ending. Professor Winters, my research advisor, found me in the crowd. "Amanda, just wanted to congratulate you personally. Your senior thesis was exceptional." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance." She smiled warmly. "The psychology department at Eastman University would be lucky to have you in their graduate program. Have you given any more thought to their offer?" I had been accepted to Eastman's clinical psychology program with a teaching assistantship, but had yet to make my final decision. "I'm strongly considering it. Just waiting until after graduation to make it official." "Well, they'd be getting one of our best. I've already told their department chair as much." She squeezed my arm before moving on to greet other students. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of emotions. The procession into the auditorium, the sight of thousands of families in the audience, the speeches about future potential and past accomplishments. I scanned the crowd during the procession and spotted my mom, brother, and several aunts and uncles in the family section. My dad was easy to spot, his tall frame and proud smile visible even from a distance. Strangely, I noticed empty seats where Aunt Patricia and Uncle William should have been. They had been at the auditorium when I arrived, I was sure of it. Perhaps they'd stepped out momentarily. When my name was called, I walked across the stage with surprising calm, accepting my diploma with a firm handshake from the university president. The weight of the diploma holder in my hands felt significant, tangible proof of years of dedication. "Amanda Catherine Miller, Bachelor of Science in Psychology with honors," the announcer read, and I heard my dad's distinctive whoop from the audience, making me smile as I moved the tassel from right to left. After the ceremony concluded, graduates and families flooded the courtyard outside. I searched through the crowd and finally spotted my family near the psychology department's designated photo area. My mom rushed forward to hug me, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," she said, clutching me tightly. "You looked so grown up walking across that stage." My dad enveloped both of us in a bear hug. "Told you I'd embarrass you with my cheering." Even my brother Jacob seemed genuinely happy, giving me a rare hug. "Nice job, sis. You actually did it." I looked around, noticing the absence. Where are Aunt Patricia and Uncle William? A shadow passed over my mom's face. They had to leave early to make sure everything was perfect at Bellamy's. They send their congratulations. They couldn't even stay for the full ceremony. The realization stung, but I pushed the hurt aside. I wouldn't let their absence diminish this moment. We took family photos, then I broke away to find my friends for the promised pictures by the library steps. Haley found me first, rushing over with her parents in tow. "Amanda, congratulations." She hugged me tightly, then introduced her family. "Mom, Dad, this is my roommate and the smartest person I know, Amanda." Haley's parents greeted me warmly. "We've heard so much about you," her mother said. "Haley says you're the reason she passed statistics." It was definitely mutual support. I laughed. Haley talked me through more than one identity crisis during finals week. We chatted easily for a few minutes before Haley asked, "Are you heading to your party soon? We're planning to be there around 6. "Yes. We should probably start heading that way soon. The professional photographers my aunt hired are probably waiting." I couldn't keep the edge of sarcasm from my voice. Haley gave me a knowing look, Aunt Patricia in full control mode. "You have no idea." We finished our photos with promises to see each other at the party, and I returned to my family. My dad checked his watch. "We should probably get going. Your mom and I need to stop home, so she can change, and you'll want to get out of your gown before the party." The drive home was filled with ceremony highlights and Jacob's surprisingly insightful comments about the commencement speaker. At home, I carefully hung up my graduation gown and changed into the dress I'd bought specifically for the party, a deep blue sheath that my mother had helped me select. The color complemented my eyes and made me feel confident. My phone buzzed with excited texts from friends who were planning to meet at the party. Despite the complications with Aunt Patricia, I felt a surge of happiness knowing I would be surrounded by people who genuinely cared about my achievement. As we prepared to leave for Bellamy's, my dad pulled me aside in the hallway. "Remember what I said this morning," he said quietly. Today is your day. No matter what happens at this party, remember that you've accomplished something remarkable, and nothing can take that away from you." His intensity puzzled me. "Dad, it's just a party. What are you worried about?" He seemed to catch himself. "Nothing specific. Just know that I'm in your corner always." I nodded, touched by his support but unsettled by his cryptic warning. As we drove to Bellamy's, I tried to focus on the positive. In a few hours I would be celebrating with friends and family. What could possibly go wrong? Bellamy's restaurant was housed in a converted Victorian mansion on the edge of town known for its elegant ambiance and gourmet cuisine. As we pulled into the crowded parking lot, I could see the banquet hall was decorated with balloons and a banner that read, "Congratulations, graduate," in flowing script. "It looks beautiful," my mom said, clearly relieved that the venue appeared appropriate for the occasion. We entered through the main doors, and I immediately noticed the interior decorations were not the blue and gold university colors I had expected, but rather a palette of soft pinks and lavenders. Pastel streamers hung from the chandeliers, and the centerpieces featured pale pink roses, rather than the sunflowers I had mentioned loving to my mom months ago. "Did the colors change?" I whispered to my mom. She looked uncomfortable. Patricia thought these would photograph better, more elegant. Before I could respond, Aunt Patricia herself appeared immaculately dressed in a designer suit, greeting guests at the entrance with practiced charm. She air-kissed an elderly couple I recognized as friends of my grandparents, then turned to us. "Catherine, Robert, you're finally here. The Andersons arrived 20 minutes ago." Her tone implied we were late, though we had arrived exactly at the time specified on the invitations. Her eyes landed on me, giving me a quick assessment. "Amanda, dear, congratulations." The words were correct, but the warmth was missing. Uncle William stood nearby with the guest book directing people to sign. He nodded at us but remained at his post. Across the room I spotted Cousin Grace looking uncomfortable in a dress I suspected her mother had selected. She caught my eye and gave me a subtle eye roll followed by an apologetic smile. My mom was immediately pulled away to deal with some question about the catering, and my dad was intercepted by my mother's cousin Dennis, who wanted to discuss some recent sports controversy. I found myself momentarily alone, taking in the transformed space. A table near the entrance had been set up to display photographs, and I moved closer to examine it. My heart sank as I realized that the display featured very few pictures of me. There was one obligatory photo from my high school graduation and a single candid shot from a family vacation years ago. The rest of the table showcased family group photos where I was barely visible and prominently displayed childhood photos of my brother Jacob in sports uniforms and at award ceremonies. Even more bizarrely, there were several photographs of cousin Melissa receiving dance trophies and Aunt Patricia's older daughter Hannah at her law school graduation from 3 years ago. My college journey, the very reason for this celebration, was barely represented. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to find Mrs. Bennett, my high school English teacher, who had written one of my college recommendation letters. "Amanda, congratulations. What a wonderful achievement. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Bennett, and for everything you did to help me get into Michigan." She smiled warmly. "Your hard work did that. I just confirmed what the admissions committee could see for themselves." She glanced around, looking slightly confused. "This is quite an elaborate setup. I almost thought I was at the wrong event. The invitation said it was your graduation party." "It is," I confirmed, trying to keep my tone neutral. She said, studying the photo display. "Well, it's lovely in any case. Will you be staying in town now that you've graduated?" Before I could answer, Aunt Patricia materialized beside us. "Amanda has several options to consider," she interjected smoothly. "Mrs. Bennett, have you met my daughter Hannah? She's practicing family law now with Jameson and Burke." And just like that, I was expertly removed from my own conversation and Hannah was ushered forward while I was left standing alone again. This pattern repeated itself several times over the next half hour. Each time I began speaking with a guest, Aunt Patricia would appear, redirect the conversation, and subtly maneuver me away from the interaction. I checked my phone, wondering where Haley and my other friends were. She had texted 20 minutes ago that they had arrived at Bellamy's, but I hadn't seen them yet. I sent her a quick message. "Where are you guys? I'm in the main banquet room." Her reply came seconds later. We're at the entrance. Some man with a guest list won't let us in. Says we need to wait. Confused, I made my way back to the main entrance. Through the glass doors, I could see Haley and 3 other friends from my study group standing outside looking frustrated. Uncle William was speaking to them, consulting a clipboard with what appeared to be a guest list. I pushed through the doors. Uncle William, these are my friends from university. They're invited. He looked uncomfortable. Amanda, there seems to be some confusion with the list. Patricia has specific instructions about guest admittance. It's my graduation party, I said firmly. My friends are invited. He hesitated, then reluctantly stepped aside to let them enter. Haley gave me a concerned look as they filed past. Everything okay? Not really, I admitted quietly. Something weird is going on. We returned to the banquet hall together, but our entry didn't go unnoticed. Aunt Patricia broke away from a conversation and approached us swiftly. Amanda, a word please. She steered me away from my friends with a firm hand on my elbow. What's going on? I asked when we were out of earshot. The guest list was finalized yesterday, she said tightly. Adding people now disrupts the seating arrangements. These are my closest friends from college. They were always invited. Mom and I discussed this months ago. Plans change. We had to prioritize family and meaningful connections. I stared at her, incredulous. Meaningful to whom? This is my graduation party. She gave me a cold smile. And we've gone to considerable expense to make it appropriate. Now the Stevensons are asking about your plans. They have connections at several counseling centers. You should speak with them. She nodded toward an older couple across the room. I recognized them as Aunt Patricia's friends, not family connections. I've already accepted a position with a research group. I lied, unwilling to discuss my actual plans with her. Her smile tightened. We'll discuss that later. For now, make yourself useful and greet the family members who made the effort to attend. The implication that I should be grateful for their presence at my own celebration was the final straw. I need to check on my friends, I said, turning away before she could object. I found Haley and the others awkwardly clustered near the buffet, clearly feeling unwelcome. I'm so sorry about this, I told them. I don't know what's happening. Your aunt seems pretty intense, my friend Ryan commented. She just redirected the waiter who was bringing us drinks. I looked around and noticed for the first time that the seating arrangement had me at a small table near the kitchen doors, far from the main family table, where my parents, brother, and extended family were seated. Even more telling, place cards for my friends were nowhere to be found. A cold realization washed over me. This wasn't a miscommunication or a series of unfortunate changes. This was deliberate. For some reason, Aunt Patricia had systematically transformed my graduation celebration into something that minimized my presence and achievements. I excused myself and went to the restroom, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. In the mirror, I studied my reflection, noting the hurt and confusion in my eyes. The beautiful blue dress suddenly felt wrong, like I was playing a part in someone else's production. On impulse, I returned to my car and retrieved my cap and gown from the back seat. If this was supposedly my graduation celebration, I would at least look the part. Perhaps the visual reminder of what we were meant to be celebrating would refocus the event. As I re-entered the venue wearing my graduation regalia, I noticed several guests smiling and nodding approvingly. This at least made sense to them. I was the graduate being honored. But as I made my way back toward the banquet hall, I could feel the weight of Aunt Patricia's disapproving stare from across the room. I had just reached the entrance to the banquet hall when Aunt Patricia intercepted me, her face a mask of barely contained irritation. Amanda, what are you doing? The formal photos are over. I thought people might want pictures with the actual graduate, I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite the tension building in my chest. She glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot. Take that off. It looks theatrical and draws unnecessary attention. It's a graduation party, I pointed out. The gown seems appropriate. Her eyes narrowed. We've moved beyond the ceremony portion of the day. This is a sophisticated family gathering, not a costume party. She reached to straighten a non-existent wrinkle in her expensive blouse. Now I need to speak with you about your friends. What about my friends? I asked, a defensive edge creeping into my voice. They weren't on the final guest list. William shouldn't have let them in without consulting me. They've disrupted the seating arrangement and the catering count. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. They were always invited. Mom and I discussed this months ago. Plans evolve, Amanda. We had to prioritize. The Stevensons brought their daughter, who's considering psychology at State, and the Richardsons brought their nephew, who works for the counseling center. Those are valuable connections for your future, not college friends you'll likely never see again after today. The dismissive way she referenced my closest friends made something shift inside me. 4 years of psychology training kicked in, and I suddenly recognized the classic manipulation tactics she had always employed. The gaslighting, the control, the subtle, demeaning comments designed to make me doubt myself. "I'd like to check on my friends," I said, stepping around her. She moved to block my path. "Where do you think you're going?" "Inside. To my party." I tried to step around her again. "The party is just starting, but it's really just for close family." Her words were like a slap delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I looked past her into the banquet hall, where everyone else was already inside, mingling and enjoying themselves. My parents were seated at the main table, my mother looking anxious and my father engaged in conversation with Uncle William. My brother Jacob was laughing with our cousins. Everyone was inside except me and my friends. Through the window I could see Haley and my other friends being escorted toward the parking lot by one of the venue staff. Uncle William must have arranged their removal while Aunt Patricia kept me distracted. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This was not my party, it never had been. Whatever this event was, it had been designed to minimize me, to put me in my place, to remind me that I would always be secondary in the family hierarchy. The months of subtle changes to the plans, the redirected conversations, the missing photographs, the seating arrangement, and now the explicit exclusion all pointed to one conclusion. I was not welcome at my own graduation celebration. My face flushed hot with humiliation and anger. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. For a moment, the hallway seemed to narrow tunnel vision, focusing my attention solely on my aunt's smugly superior expression. Years of accumulated hurt crystallized in that moment. Every time I had been sidelined at family events, every accomplishment that had been diminished, every opinion that had been dismissed, all condensed into a single clarifying thought: I did not have to accept this treatment. I looked down at the cap and gown I was wearing, symbols of the independence and education I had fought for, despite Aunt Patricia's discouragement. Then, with deliberate calmness, I removed the cap and folded the gown over my arm. "I understand now," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Guess I'll celebrate elsewhere." Aunt Patricia's expression flickered with surprise, clearly not expecting this reaction. She recovered quickly. "Don't be dramatic, Amanda. You can come in, just not wearing that ridiculous outfit, and we'll need to discuss your friends another time." But I was already turning toward the exit, dignity intact, despite the tears threatening to spill. I walked past the confused staff member, who had just returned from escorting my friends out, past the elaborate welcome sign with my name spelled correctly, but everything else wrong, past the valet who offered to retrieve my car. I reached the parking lot, the gown and cap clutched to my chest like a shield. My friends were gathered near Haley's car, looking confused and concerned. "Amanda, what happened?" Haley called, hurrying toward me. "That man said there was a mistake with the guest list." "There was no mistake," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "This isn't my party. It never was." I explained quickly what had transpired, watching their expressions shift from confusion to outrage on my behalf. "That's insane," Ryan declared. "You worked harder than anyone I know to graduate with honors." "Let's go somewhere else," Haley suggested firmly. "We can have our own celebration without all that toxic drama." I nodded gratefully, but as I turned toward my car, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. My dad was hurrying across the parking lot, his face a mask of shock and concern. "Amanda, wait." I paused, unsure what to expect. Had he been sent to bring me back, to smooth things over, and convince me to accept my designated role in Aunt Patricia's production? but the expression on his face as he reached me was anything but conciliatory. He was furious, but not with me. "What happened?" he demanded, slightly out of breath. "I saw your friends leaving and then Patricia came back looking smug. What did she say to you?" Before I could answer the venue, doors opened again and more people emerged. My brother Jacob was walking rapidly toward us, followed by cousin Grace and her boyfriend Ethan. Something unprecedented was happening, a fracture in the careful hierarchy that had governed our family gatherings for as long as I could remember. My dad reached me first, his face flushed from running across the parking lot. "Amanda, what happened?" he repeated, resting his hands on my shoulders and searching my face. The concern in his eyes unleashed the emotions I'd been struggling to contain. "She told me to wait outside." I managed, my voice breaking. "She said the party was just for close family. After everything, all the changes to the plans, the missing photos, seating me away from everyone, she actually told me I didn't belong at my own graduation party." My dad's expression shifted from concern to disbelief to anger in rapid succession. "She did what?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking momentarily lost. "I had no idea they would do this, Amanda. I swear." "Do what exactly?" Jacob asked, joining us with confusion evident on his face. "Why did you leave?" "Aunt Patricia told Amanda the party was just for family and made her wait outside." My dad explained, his voice tight with restrained fury. "She had Amanda's friends removed from the guest list." Jacob's eyes widened. "Are you serious? That's messed up. It's your graduation party." "Apparently not," I said bitterly. "It's just another showcase for Aunt Patricia's event planning skills and a networking opportunity for Melissa." Grace reached us then, slightly out of breath. "I knew something was wrong when I saw your friends leaving. Mom's gone too far this time." She turned to my father. "Uncle Robert, I'm so sorry. I should have warned you earlier. Mom's been planning this for weeks, changing everything when Aunt Catherine wasn't looking." "Planning what exactly?" my dad demanded. Grace exchanged an uncomfortable look with her boyfriend Ethan. "Mom found out about Amanda's graduate school acceptance to Eastman. She's been furious that Amanda got into a program that rejected Melissa last year. She kept saying Amanda was showing off her academic success and needed to be taught humility." I stared at Grace in shock. How did she even know about Eastman? "I haven't told anyone except my academic advisor." "Melissa works part-time in the university admissions office," Grace explained. "She saw your name on some list and told Mom." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Aunt Patricia's escalating interference with the party plans, the professional networking focus, the deliberate exclusion. It was all a calculated response to her perception that I was somehow threatening her daughter's status. My dad's face had gone completely still, a sure sign of his deepest anger. "So Patricia deliberately hijacked Amanda's graduation celebration out of jealousy over her daughter's rejection. And your mother knew about this?" He directed this last question to my brother. Jacob shook his head emphatically. "No way. Mom would never go along with something like that. She must have been manipulated too." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my mom calling for the third time since I'd left the venue. I showed the screen to my dad. "Let it go to voicemail," he advised. "We need to figure out what to do now." I nodded, slipping the phone back into my pocket. "I just want to leave. Haley and the others have offered to go somewhere else." My dad looked at my friends, who had been standing a respectful distance away during this family confrontation. "Thank you for supporting Amanda," he said sincerely. "But before anyone leaves, we need to make a decision." He turned back to me. "This should be your choice, Amanda. We can either go back in there together and confront Patricia, or we can leave and celebrate elsewhere. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." The fact that he was giving me the choice, respecting my agency in this situation, meant more than I could express. For the first time, someone was directly challenging Aunt Patricia's authority over our family events. Before I could respond, another figure emerged from the venue. Uncle William approached cautiously, his usual confidence notably absent. "Robert," he began, addressing my father. "Patricia says there's been a misunderstanding. She'd like Amanda to come back inside so we can sort this out." My dad's posture stiffened. "A misunderstanding, William? Your wife told my daughter, the guest of honor, that she wasn't welcome at her own graduation party. She had Amanda's friends removed from the celebration. What exactly is there to misunderstand?" Uncle William shifted uncomfortably. You know how Patricia gets about these events. She wants everything perfect. Perhaps she expressed herself poorly. She expressed herself perfectly clearly. I interjected, finding my voice again. This isn't about poor communication. This is about control and manipulation, and I'm done accepting it. Uncle William looked taken aback by my directness. He was accustomed to the younger, more accommodating version of me who had always eventually given in to maintain family peace. Amanda, be reasonable, he attempted. Everyone is waiting inside. Your mother is quite upset. I'm being perfectly reasonable, I replied calmly. For the first time in my life, I'm setting a boundary that should have been established years ago. I won't participate in an event designed to diminish me. My dad placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. William, you can tell Patricia that we've decided to celebrate Amanda's achievement elsewhere. Anyone who genuinely wants to honor her accomplishment is welcome to join us. Uncle William's face reddened. Robert, you're overreacting. This kind of dramatic gesture will only cause a family rift. The rift already exists, my father replied evenly. It's just been covered up by years of accommodating Patricia's controlling behavior. Not anymore. As Uncle William stood there, sputtering, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from my mom. Where are you? What's happening? Patricia is saying you left because you were upset about the slideshow. Please come back. I showed the message to my dad, who sighed heavily. Your mother is caught in the middle. She's been navigating Patricia's manipulation for so long she can't even see it clearly anymore. Should I answer her? I asked. Let me call her, Jacob offered, pulling out his phone. He stepped away for privacy, while Uncle William retreated toward the venue, clearly planning to report back to Aunt Patricia. So what now? I asked my dad. He thought for a moment. Let's stop by the house to pick up a few things, then find a place to have our own celebration. Something genuine. Just then, Haley approached tentatively. Amanda, we're all still here for you if you want company. No pressure, though, if you need family time. Are you kidding? You guys are my real support system. I'd love for you to join us. I turned to my dad. Is that okay? He smiled warmly at my friends. Absolutely. The more the merrier. Jacob returned from his phone call looking troubled. Mom's really upset. She says she had no idea what Aunt Patricia was planning. She wants to meet us at home. Is she coming alone? My dad asked pointedly. She says yes. She told Aunt Patricia she needed to check on something and would be back. Grace spoke up. Ethan and I want to come with you too, if that's okay. I'm done enabling my mother's behavior. I felt a surge of gratitude toward my cousin. Standing up to Aunt Patricia would have consequences for her, yet she was willing to take that risk to support me. Our impromptu convoy formed quickly. My dad, Jacob, and I would stop at home to meet my mom and collect some celebration supplies. Grace and Ethan would follow, and my friends would meet us at Riverside Park, a beautiful spot by the water that had always been one of my favorite places in town. As we pulled out of Bellamy's parking lot, I glanced back at the elegant venue with its pastel decorations and formal atmosphere. Whatever was happening inside those walls wasn't meant for me. It was a stage set for Aunt Patricia's social machinations, not a genuine celebration of my achievement. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. I'm so sorry, Amanda. I didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. I'll explain everything when you get home. The mixture of anger, hurt, and relief swirling inside me was overwhelming. As we drove toward home, my dad reached over and squeezed my hand. I should have stood up to them years ago, he said quietly. I thought keeping peace was more important than confronting the problem. I was wrong, and you paid the price for that. I'm sorry, Amanda. You're standing up now, I replied. That's what matters. There's something you should know, he continued, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Your Aunt Patricia has always been jealous of anyone she perceives as a threat to her status in the family. When your mom and I first got married, Patricia did everything she could to undermine our relationship. When you started showing academic promise in high school, she began targeting you specifically. But why? What did I ever do to her? Nothing. You simply existed and excelled in ways that highlighted her own insecurities. Patricia wanted to go to university herself, but your grandfather refused to pay for his daughter's education. He was old-fashioned that way. She's never forgiven that lost opportunity, and seeing you succeed where she couldn't has been difficult for her to accept. This context helped explain Aunt Patricia's behavior, but it didn't excuse it. So she decided to hijack my graduation party as some sort of revenge. I think it's more complicated than that. Patricia genuinely believes she's entitled to control family events. In her mind, she's maintaining order and proper appearances. The fact that it satisfies her need to diminish your achievement is just a bonus. As we pulled into our driveway, I spotted my mom's car already there. She was waiting on the front porch, her face streaked with tears, and her elegant party outfit looking strangely out of place in this context. When she saw us, she rushed down the steps and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry, Amanda. I had no idea she would go that far. I should have seen it coming." I returned her embrace stiffly, still processing my complicated feelings. "Why did you let her take over my party in the first place? It was supposed to be a small dinner at Angelo's, not a networking event at Bellamy's." My mom stepped back, wiping her eyes. It happened so gradually. First, it was just suggestions about the guest list, then concerns about the venue size. Before I realized what was happening, she had completely transformed the event. Every time I objected, she made me feel like I was being unreasonable or ungrateful for her help. "That's Patricia's specialty," my dad said, joining us on the porch. "She's been manipulating family dynamics for decades." My mom looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and shame. I should have been stronger. I knew how important this celebration was to Amanda. Jacob arrived with Grace and Ethan, and we all moved inside. While my dad gathered supplies for our alternative celebration, my mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "There's something else you should know," she said quietly. "Patricia found out about your acceptance to Eastman's graduate program. Melissa applied there last year and was rejected. I think that's what pushed Patricia over the edge." "Grace already told me," I replied. "But that doesn't justify what she did." "No, it doesn't," my mom agreed firmly. "Nothing justifies it, and I want you to know that I'm done enabling her behavior. I've spent my whole life trying to keep peace with my sister at the expense of everything else, including my relationship with you. That ends today." The conviction in her voice surprised me. For the first time in my memory, my mother seemed willing to challenge the established family hierarchy. "What will you do?" I asked. "First, I'm going to celebrate my daughter's graduation properly, with people who genuinely care about her achievement. Then tomorrow, I'm going to have a long overdue conversation with my sister about boundaries and respect." I smiled, feeling a tentative hope that perhaps some positive change might emerge from this painful experience. Dad returned with a cooler of drinks and the cake we had originally ordered from my favorite local bakery, which he had apparently hidden in the garage freezer to preserve our original plan. "I saved this just in case," he explained with a wink. "Call it paternal intuition." As we prepared to head to the park, my phone buzzed with multiple text notifications. Haley and my other friends had arrived at Riverside Park and secured a perfect picnic spot. Several of my other classmates had heard about the situation and were on their way to join us. Even my favorite professor had texted that she might stop by with her husband to offer congratulations. What had begun as a humiliating exclusion was transforming into something unexpectedly beautiful, a genuine celebration surrounded by people who truly cared about me. Riverside Park was glorious that May evening, with golden sunlight filtering through the trees and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of flowering dogwoods. My friends had claimed a large area near the water, spreading blankets and setting up a portable speaker, playing my favorite playlist. They cheered when they saw us approaching, making me laugh through the lingering tears. "Now this is a proper graduation party," Haley declared, hugging me tightly. "No guest list required." My dad set up the cake on a picnic table, carefully removing it from its box. The simple design featured my university colors and "Congratulations, Amanda," in elegant script exactly as I had envisioned months ago. "I have something to say," my dad announced once everyone had gathered around. He cleared his throat, suddenly emotional. "Today we're celebrating not just Amanda's academic achievement, which is impressive enough on its own, but also the incredible person she has become. While earning her psychology degree, Amanda has shown determination, integrity, and the courage to forge her own path, even when faced with obstacles and discouragement. He looked directly at me, his eyes shining with pride. Your grandmother used to say that true education isn't just about knowledge, but about developing the wisdom to use that knowledge well. Amanda, you've done exactly that. You've learned not just psychology theories, but how to recognize unhealthy dynamics and the courage to establish boundaries. That may be the most valuable education of all. His words resonated deeply, helping me reframe the day's painful events as a necessary step in my personal growth rather than just a family tragedy. My friends took turns sharing memories from our university years, from late-night study sessions to our triumphant celebration after completing our senior research projects. The atmosphere was relaxed and joyful, exactly the kind of gathering I had originally wanted. As the evening progressed, I found myself sitting with Grace by the water's edge, watching the sunset paint the river in shades of gold and pink. I should have warned you sooner about what Mom was planning, she said, skipping a stone across the water's surface. I knew something was off, but I didn't realize how far she would take it. You're here now, I pointed out. That counts for a lot. She smiled ruefully. You know she'll make me pay for this rebellion. You're welcome to stay with us for a while if you need space from her, I offered. I might take you up on that. She hesitated, then added, I've been dealing with Mom's control issues my whole life. Watching you stand up to her today was inspiring. I've never seen anyone do that before. Not even your dad. She laughed without humor. Dad's strategy has always been to let Mom think she's in charge while quietly doing whatever he wants anyway. It works for him, but it's not exactly a model of healthy confrontation. We were interrupted by Jacob, who plopped down beside us with 3 cups of lemonade. Mom's on her way, he announced, handing us each a drink. She wanted to bring the gifts from the party. I tensed slightly. Just Mom, right? Not Aunt Patricia. Just Mom, he confirmed. Though Aunt Patricia apparently tried to prevent her from leaving, there was quite a scene according to the text Mom sent Dad. The realization that my mother was finally standing up to her sister after decades of acquiescence was both shocking and heartening. My mother arrived 30 minutes later, looking simultaneously exhausted and liberated. She carried several gift bags and was accompanied by 2 of my uncles from my father's side of the family, who had apparently chosen to leave the official party once they understood what had happened. Amanda, Uncle David said, giving me a warm hug. Sorry we didn't realize what was going on sooner. Your Aunt Barbara wanted to come too, but someone needed to help your cousins escape gracefully. The fact that more family members were choosing to leave Bellamy's to join our alternative celebration spoke volumes about the shifting family dynamics. As the stars began to appear above us, I found myself surrounded by a circle of genuine support, my parents sitting together, hands intertwined in silent solidarity. My brother Jacob, who had finally stepped out of his role as the family peacekeeper, cousin Grace finding her own voice of resistance, my university friends who had stood by me through 4 years of growth and change, and even extended family members who had chosen authentic connection over social appearance. 1 week after graduation, I finally felt ready to confront Aunt Patricia directly. My mother had already had her own difficult conversation with her sister, establishing boundaries that had been lacking for decades. Now it was my turn to speak my truth. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, where the public setting would help keep emotions in check. Aunt Patricia arrived precisely on time, her expression carefully neutral. Thank you for meeting me, I began once we were seated with our drinks. I wanted to talk to you directly about what happened at my graduation party. I think there were misunderstandings on all sides, she replied smoothly, her default position of denying responsibility already in play. No, there weren't, I said firmly. You deliberately excluded me from my own celebration. You removed my friends from the guest list. You minimized my achievement because it threatened you in some way. Her carefully composed expression flickered with surprise at my directness. Amanda, you're being overly dramatic. I simply tried to create an appropriate social event for the family. It wasn't your event to create, I pointed out. And we both know this wasn't about social appropriateness. This was about control and your inability to celebrate anyone else's success if it overshadows Melissa's parse. Color rose in her cheeks. That's absurd. I've always supported this family. No, you've always controlled this family. There's a difference. I took a deep breath, centering myself. I didn't ask to meet with you to argue about the past. I wanted to establish clarity for the future. I won't participate in family events where I'm treated as an afterthought or where my achievements are minimized. I won't pretend everything is fine when it isn't. And I won't enable unhealthy dynamics for the sake of keeping peace. She stared at me, genuinely speechless for perhaps the first time in our relationship. I continued, my voice steady. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm simply informing you of the boundaries I'm establishing for myself. You can choose to respect them or not, but your choice will determine the nature of our relationship moving forward. And if I don't accept these terms, she asked, a hint of her usual authority returning to her voice. Then we'll have a very limited relationship, I replied simply, which would be sad, but ultimately your choice. I left that meeting feeling lighter than I had in years. I had no illusions that one conversation would transform Aunt Patricia or heal decades of family dysfunction. But I had spoken my truth and established my boundaries regardless of the outcome. That alone was a victory. The months following graduation brought significant changes. I accepted the position at Eastman University's graduate psychology program, moving to a city 3 hours away. The physical distance provided a natural buffer as our family began the messy process of redefining relationships and expectations. My father emerged as an unexpected ally in this transition. Having finally confronted his own role in enabling unhealthy family dynamics, he became a strong advocate for maintaining the boundaries we had established. My mother's journey was more complicated, navigating the difficult terrain between sisterly connection and maternal protection, but she remained committed to change. 6 months after graduation, as the holiday season approached, we faced the first major test of our new family paradigm. Traditionally, Thanksgiving had always been held at Aunt Patricia's house, with everyone conforming to her expectations. This year, my parents decided to host their own celebration, inviting family members to join them but making it clear that the event would be relaxed and inclusive. Aunt Patricia called me directly when she received the news, her first contact since our coffee shop meeting. "Your mother says you're all doing Thanksgiving differently this year," she began without preamble. "Yes, my parents are hosting at their house," I confirmed. "I see." There was a long pause. "And will you be there?" "I will." Another pause. "Would it be acceptable if William and I attended? Melissa will be with her boyfriend's family this year." The tentative nature of her inquiry represented a seismic shift in our family's power dynamics. For the first time in my memory, Aunt Patricia was asking permission rather than issuing directives. "You're welcome to come," I said carefully. "But it will be different from what you're used to. More casual, less structured." "I understand." She hesitated, then added, "I've been thinking about our conversation. I don't agree with everything you said, but perhaps there's some validity to your perspective." Coming from Aunt Patricia, this grudging acknowledgement was equivalent to a full apology from anyone else. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Thanksgiving proved to be surprisingly peaceful. Aunt Patricia arrived with her signature apple pie and a slightly subdued demeanor. She made visible efforts to engage without controlling, though I caught her biting her tongue several times when things weren't done exactly as she would have preferred. Uncle William seemed relieved by the reduced tension, engaging my father in genuine conversation rather than careful diplomacy. As I helped clean up after dinner, my mother joined me in the kitchen, bumping my hip affectionately as she had done when I was a child. "Look at us," she said softly. "Who would have thought standing in a parking lot in our fancy clothes would lead to all this change?" I smiled, remembering the moment that had catalyzed our family's transformation. Being asked to wait outside was the invitation I needed to find where I truly belonged. She nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes exclusion leads to finding true inclusion. I wish it hadn't happened that way, but I'm grateful for where we've ended up." As I think back on that graduation day, I realize it marked my true commencement in ways I never anticipated. While my degree certified my academic knowledge, The events that followed taught me about the courage required to establish healthy boundaries, the strength needed to speak difficult truths, and the wisdom to distinguish between blood, relatives, and true family. The locket my father gave me still hangs around my neck, a reminder, not just of my grandmother's legacy, but of the moment when my family began its journey toward authentic connection. The path hasn't been perfect or linear, but it has been real, with each step bringing us closer to the genuine relationships we all deserved all along. So if you're watching this and struggling with family dynamics that diminish your light, remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply turn around and walk away from situations that don't serve your 2C's growth. You deserve to be celebrated fully for who you are. The people who truly belong in your life are those who rejoice in your success rather than feeling threatened by it. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family to protect your peace? Comment below and share your experience. Like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and remember that chosen family can sometimes be the greatest gift of all. Thank you for being part of my journey.